Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. Well, I have Scarlett Stanhope with me here today on Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. First, right out of the bat, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll clearly notice that Scarlett is not a midlife woman. In fact, she could be my daughter because she's about that same age. But you know what, Scarlett, when you and I met, and we met on a pre-call, I just thought, wow, you are such an inspiration to every generation out there. And so I wanted you to share your story. I wanted you to share your story because other midlife women would love to hear through the lens of somebody, maybe their daughter's age as well. And so you've got a really good background and you've got a really great little business going. And so I'm really excited for you to be here and I want you to share everything about your story. And we're going to get right into it. But before we do, I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Give yourself a bit of a background and we'll take it from there.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. I am super excited to be here. And for everybody listening, hello, my name is Scarlett, aka the Biz Hippie, and I am a money and abundance coach. And so what I do is I help people to live their best lives without money holding them back from doing more of what they love, like the work they want to do, or really just live the lives that they're meant to live.
That's awesome. So what I want you to do is just take us through a bit of your background, kind of how you got into coaching. I mean, you're 28-ish years old, 29 maybe. Where did you get the courage to start a business around what you're doing?
Yeah, so I definitely had my own personal growth journey for sure. And really it started all the way in childhood. Growing up, I was always the type A high achiever perfectionist. I was really great at getting straight A's, at checking all the boxes, doing everything right. And that bled into my young adulthood. But at the same time, I really learned how to model this identity of success and perfection and really be the person that I was supposed to be according to society's standards. And so as a result, I was also a child with migraines all the time because I just was following this perfect picture of who I was supposed to be in order to do life right. And so by the time I was a teenager, I started working by the time I was 16 and was still checking all the right boxes. Like I was putting 70% of every paycheck into savings, then was maintaining my grades. And then when I went to college, I was getting my bachelor's in business management, accounting, and finance, maintaining my 3.9 GPA, was managing restaurants by the time I was 18, had $1,000 saved in a savings account, had zero credit card debt, zero student loans, and was paying for college out of pocket. And so on paper, everything looked really great. I was crushing it. People were looking at me and was like, oh yeah, Scarlett, she has her life together. She knows what she's doing. But inside was really a different story. And I had really become an empty shell of a human, really, because I had used my whole life to become this version of success and really set aside and push down and repress and hide parts of who I was and really what I wanted, I had never even considered. And so as a result, even though my life looked great on paper, I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was in a relationship that I should not have been in. I would, work late nights at the restaurant, work 30 hours a week just on the weekends, and would leave work late, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I would drive home 100 miles per hour in the middle of the night on the highway with the radio blasting at full volume with tears just streaming down my face and screaming over the radio because I just had so much repressed emotion and was so discontent and dissatisfied in my life. But at the same time, I still didn't even realize that anything was wrong. I just thought that this was normal, even though everything was screaming at me that this wasn't the case. The fact that I was in a relationship that I should not have been in, the fact that I was covered head to toe in eczema and my body was telling me how uncomfortable it was to literally be in my own skin, the fact that I had migraines, that I contemplated my own death often, that I was a workaholic, disconnected from my friends and family. Like, that's really the point of my life that I got to before I had done this work.
That is an amazing story. And I can't even imagine what you were really going through. One can only just listen to the story and just, the heart goes out to you. When I think about that story, what were your friends doing? What were they noticing, or did you feel like you were kind of in the same circle as everybody else?
I eventually really disconnected from friends. I really disconnected from friends. I disconnected from family. So even if they maybe noticed at the beginning, by the time I was really going through the thick of it, we weren't, we were starting to fizzle out the friendship, I would say. And I really spent a lot of my time at work. Even when I wasn't actually working, I would go into work on my time off and spend time with my coworkers for hours. So work really just was my complete and entire identity.
Yeah, and that's just such a relatable story, can be molded in any way. And I think that a lot of us are, these self-proclaimed perfectionists, and we need to be doing this and we need to be doing that, and anxiety and all the, you had all these symptoms that were showing up for you that sort of gave you these clues that, hey, something's got to change. So what was that moment, where you sort of felt like, okay, like enough's enough, I've got to do something?
Yeah, for me, I like to describe it as a rock bottom moment. I think that in order to really change and transform, something has to spark you and something has to wake you up. And for me, I needed something pretty aggressive to wake me up, because all these things that, looking back now, seem so obvious were not obvious to me at the time. And so what did happen was a very scary near death feeling experience that I had. It was from, I accidentally consumed too much marijuana one night. That was given to me, and there was a miscommunication. And it was very late at night. I went back to the boyfriend that I was dating at the time. It was like a.m., 4 a.m., and he's asleep next to me, and I'm laying there, and I have never been so high in my life. I had a spiritual journey experience that literally pulled me out of my body and had me look at my life in a different way. And it really woke me up to see everything that was present. And I said, wow, okay, I'm covered in eczema because I'm here, because I'm ignoring what's present. I'm ignoring myself, and I am literally living this life waiting for life to start. And yet life is already happening around me. And so I had all these realizations and epiphanies about my life in that moment. But then the next thing that happened was I thought that I was overdosing, having seizures, and dying, because also I was, young at the time and had only been told growing up, like, drugs are bad, don't do drugs. And so, of course, I'm like, of course you can overdose from marijuana. And so I 100% in that moment believed that I was having seizures and that this was the end of my life. And I was essentially facing my own death in that moment. And in that moment, laying there now 4 a.m. next to this person in this situation, in this life, I remember thinking, like, okay, so I guess I'm just going to lay here and die. Like, that's really what's going to happen. I'm just going to slip quietly into the darkness, and this is how my life is going to end. And that really felt like the easier choice. But there was this other voice that came up inside of me and said, well, if I'm going to die, then I do not want to die here in this room, in this bed, with this person, in this life scenario. And so I got up out of that bed, walked out of that house, got in my car at 4 a.m., and I called my mother on the phone and had a total breakdown. And that was the first time that I had really reached out and asked for help. It was also the first time that I admitted that things were not okay. I had also been hiding the fact that I had been, drinking and smoking, and admitted that to my mom too. And so she came to get me. And so really that moment was the pivot point that changed everything. And even then, it wasn't a rapid transformation. I didn't wake up the next day and suddenly my whole life was different. It was kind of like I woke up in the bottom of a really deep pit that I had dug myself in. And it then took several years of climbing out of that pit to rediscover and heal myself.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And I think that, at that age where you had that I guess, out of body experience that really sort of woke you up to reality. A lot of people don't even get that until, well, ever. But then, or later in life where they've just kept pushing, pushing, and pushing. And so, in some ways, it was good that it happened to you then because who knows what could have happened, you know? So, you shifted then from this overachiever into, I guess, healing yourself. Would you say, like, what was the first thing? What were you doing over that 2-year period where you said, it didn't happen? I recognized that I needed to make a change, but it didn't happen overnight. It was a process. So take us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference was before this moment had happened, I was a passive participant in my life. I was passive and I was indecisive. So I was really just going with the flow of life and doing what I thought I should be doing and being who I thought I should. And as a result, I was setting myself aside and I wasn't making decisions about my life. I wasn't making choices about my life. And I was just hoping that someday I would cross a magical threshold that says, you've arrived, you've done enough, you've reached enough success, and now you can start doing what you want to do. And so waking up from that experience had me recognize, wait, life is happening now and I'm the one that's in control of it. And so the slow process was discovering, who am I when I set aside these expectations of success and money, and what do I want? And what's important to me? And what kind of life do I want to live? And then I started making choices and decisions about my life as opposed to being indecisive and passive. And that was really a practice of taking back control of my life and being the one who is consciously and intentionally and actively creating this life that I am living.
I guess it started first by just admitting, right, where you were at. You told your mom, like when you were telling that story, it sort of sounded like your mom had no idea, maybe of what was going on in your life, like how you were truly feeling. You probably didn't know until that moment. And then you decided, okay, I am going to make some shifts. Where did you start? Like, what was the path that you took to sort of overcome it? And where I'm going with this question is a lot of the time we will create a product or a service that first solve the problem for ourselves. And so that's the journey I want you to take us in, is like, what did you do to help yourself, how to pull yourself out of the hole, as you say?
Yeah, yeah. And a huge part of it really came back to peeling away the layers that were creating the life that I was currently living, right? So the stories, the expectations, the beliefs that I had about myself, the world, and money, especially. And I had to really peel away, who am I versus what was I just taught? And so that was one really big step, was starting to see clearly what internally was creating, what belief systems, what thoughts were creating the life that I was living before, and learning to bring awareness to that and see that clearly so that I could shift the pattern, shift the beliefs, and not just take it at face value and accept it as true. So that was one really big component, and that does tie huge into the work that I do today and that I serve other people with. But another part of it was not letting money define me, because success and money was really a huge part of my life before. I was just chasing this idea of success and money. So really changing my relationship with money was a huge part of that journey too. Because even though on paper it looked like, oh, Scarlett has a great relationship with money, money was controlling me and was controlling my life. So I really had to learn how to get in control of my money and be the one consciously and intentionally using my money to create my life instead of letting money dictate my decisions and my choices. And so that took some effort too. And part of it was this internal work, but another part of it was really learning how to be more in control of my money, to manage it, to track it, and to use it strategically.
Okay. So I've had a few other guests on my podcast where, it's always, they start first when they're working with their clients, they start first in the money zone, right? And I always wonder, like, why do we do that? Even when you read books, Think and Grow Rich, all these other books out there, it's always first your relationship with money. So, talk to me a little bit about what is a relationship with money? I get it, like are you a spender or are you a saver? But unpack it a little bit more. Why is it so important to use, I guess, money as your mirror, so to speak?
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is really important because a lot of people spend a lot of time and effort and energy focused on money because money is literally, our whole entire lives and our society really centers around money. And so I think it's interesting that people focus a lot on money. And I would also say that not a lot of people are actively doing deep money work. I think it's actually very different to do the work around healing your relationship with money than just like working hard and trying to get more money and trying to manifest it. So I think there's actually an important distinction. And again, it comes back to the fact that money is one of the deepest layers of personal growth and development that you can do. And I think that's why actually a lot of people avoid doing the deep work around money, even though they might spend a lot of time thinking about and focusing on money, because your money ties into your foundational survival mechanisms, like your foundational needs for survival. So your safety, your survival all ties into your money and your relationship with money. Your relationship with money is also a direct reflection of your relationship to yourself and your self-worth. All of that ties into your money because money is just a mirror. It's just like a relationship with any human. When you have a conversation or a relationship with a human, they're mirroring back to you your own stuff, your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own beliefs about the world and about yourself. But in that conversation with that other person, they're also bringing their stuff to the table too. So it's not a clean mirror. Like they're reflecting your stuff, they're bringing their own stuff. You kind of got to piece apart like what's yours, what's mine. But money is a clean mirror. It is unbiased. It is neutral. And so whatever your thoughts are about money, whatever your feelings are about money, however you use your money is all a reflection of your own foundational beliefs that you were taught about yourself, the world, and money growing up. And so when you heal your relationship with money, yes, it impacts every area of your life, but it's also really, really deep personal growth and personal transformation.
Talk us through a little bit about what those relationships look like, and maybe you want to apply like how you've helped a client through something, or like maybe a bit of a use case if you've got one.
Yeah, so I think there are multiple components when it comes to looking at your relationship with money. There's your thoughts about money, your feelings about money, and the way you use your money. And so when you are working on your relationship with money, you have to really address the internal side of money, the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs, and also the external and tangible side of how you are actually using your money in your every single day life. And when I work with my clients, I address both of these, and they are both incredibly important. So, for example, what this can look like is you can have a relationship with money that is very commonly rooted in some version of not enoughness. I'm not good enough. There's not enough to go around. Or another version of scarcity that commonly shows up is starving artist syndrome. The idea that we have to live an either or life. Either we can do what we love or we can make money, but we can't have both. These are very common, what I like to call scarcity seeds that most of us have just because we were raised in a society where these are very common and prevalent. And so one example from one client of what this looked like and how this showed up for her was we dug into a story where a belief was planted about money and also her self-worth when she was a teenager in high school, and everybody was wearing the fancy name brand jeans and her family could not afford the fancy name brand jeans. And she didn't even think about this like since then. But when we were working together, she was like, wow, I didn't realize how significant that small moment was, because what she made it mean about her was that she wasn't worthy or deserving of having the name brand things. You can't afford it. I'm not as good as the other people, or I can't have nice things. And so even though it was about money initially, it really tied into her self-worth in so many ways. And then that then bled into her life currently, and even especially her business currently, being able to believe that she was worthy and deserving of receiving money, having money, worthy and deserving of spending money on having nice things. Like all of that shows up in your relationship with money. And so when you first uncover what are your scarcity seeds, what are your scarce-based beliefs, and what moments in time created them, and how is this impacting your life currently every single day? And especially if you're an entrepreneur, how is it affecting your ability to make money? And then also, how is it affecting how you choose to spend money every single day? And then on the flip side of that, I had a client who was very stressed about money. She just constantly felt like she was living paycheck to paycheck, felt like no matter how hard she worked or how much she did, it was never enough. She was just always scraping by. And when we did a lot of the internal work before we even got to managing her money and being in control of her money, she started to develop a deeper level of self-trust and self-confidence than she had before. Whereas before, she felt like she couldn't trust herself in general, especially with money. And then when we did start to do the tangible work and she could see her money clearly on paper and she was in control of it, when you combined that with the internal work that we did, the result was, she told me, and I'll never forget it, I talk about this all the time. She said, right now, in this moment, I have $10 in my bank account. But in this moment, I feel more abundant than I ever had in my life because I know how to do something about it. And I know that I'm the one in control. And so that's really the result of this is abundance is not about an amount of money. It's about your relationship to that money. It is a state of being, and that can be cultivated starting from wherever you are currently at.
What you talked about scarcity, I'll call them seeds, if you will. What does worthiness sound like in a Tuesday morning internal monologue with somebody, with one of your clients? What is she thinking around worthiness? What does it sound like in her own thoughts?
Yeah, and this could show up in so many ways depending on the instance, right? It could be really small things or it could be very big things, but I think it really shows up in what you're willing to spend your money on or not, and what are your thoughts around that money. So maybe it's like, "Oh, I really want this thing, but I can't afford it, or I don't deserve it, or even like working, right? Feeling like you have to keep working versus taking time off, feeling guilty for resting, feeling like you need to keep doing more, right? So all of that, like I should be working harder, I should be doing more, I shouldn't be spending this money. All of that shows up in worthiness. And this can be showing up in even bigger ways too. For example, if you're trying to ask for more money or get a raise, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to sell your services, worthiness is going to show up there for sure. Thinking like, oh, no one's going to pay for this, or I don't deserve the raise, or they're going to say no. Or when it comes to making bigger investments and purchases for yourself, like deciding to hire a coach or go on that trip you really want to go on. Like, what are your thoughts around that and being able to afford it and it being a worthy cause? So I think worth really shows up in what is a yes with your money and what is a no and why.
Yeah, that's really good. So let's place our listeners inside of like how you first start working with somebody. Like, take us through the journey. I know you have a quiz, which I will share in the show notes for people to really sort of understand, I guess, their money type. So talk us through the quiz a little bit, and then how do you start working with somebody based on the results of that quiz, I guess?
Yeah, so the quiz is super fun. So basically, it's a free quiz to discover what is your money mindset type. Working with people and having so many conversations with people about money, I've determined that there are three primary money mindset types. And based on these money mindset types, you can really pinpoint what is the primary imbalance that you have with your relationship with money, and how can you shift to be more imbalanced with your relationship with money? Because based on where you're at in your relationship with money, different techniques are going to work better for you and move you forward towards your next level of abundance. So that's a super fun way to get started in uncovering what is your current relationship with money. And then from there, when I work with clients and I take them through my signature program, it's really a deep dive. It's a total transformation on your relationship with money. There are 5 primary steps that I take my clients through. The first one is uncovering scarcity seeds. So this is getting really clear on what is your current relationship with money? What are your thoughts, your beliefs, your stories about you, the world, and money? And how are you currently keeping yourself in this life that you're living? How are you staying in this current comfort zone? So that's the first step, is we need to get clear. How are you creating what you're creating and why? The second step is to build financial foundations. This is getting your money on paper, learning to see clearly what is actually happening with your money. It's learning to manage and track your personal finances and your business finances if you're an entrepreneur, so that you can feel in control of your money and in control of your life instead of having your money being in control of you. The other benefit that this does, learning to manage your money and see your money clearly, is it actually eliminates a lot of financial stress. Most people feel like they're going to feel really stressed when you see your money clearly and you start getting your numbers on paper. But the truth is, a lot of money stress comes from the unknown, not knowing what's actually happening with your money, not knowing how much you have, not knowing how much is going to be in your bank account in the next couple of weeks or months. And so when you can see clearly exactly how much you have and where it's going, that eliminates the fear of the unknown. So now you can do something about it. You can be in control of it. And so that's a really powerful step too, that also really does shift the mindset part of money when you learn to manage it. And then step 3 is getting really clear on what is your vision for your most abundant life. If money was not an issue, what kind of life would you be living? And so many people have not really taken the time to consider that, because money holds us back from even imagining what we want our life to be like. And then step 3 is embodying your most abundant identity. This is becoming the version of you who is already living that life now. And it's also a practice of learning to see your vision as already real now. Instead of keeping abundance off in someday in the future, it's learning to live your most abundant life now, but starting with the money that you already have, which also leads to step 5, which is using your money really strategically and consciously and intentionally in alignment with the life you want to live, so you can bring your abundant life into reality. Because really, your money is a tool for manifestation and creation. It's how you create your life every single day. So when you start using your money consciously to create your life, you can continue to bring your vision into reality.
Yeah, no, those are great. So there's 5 steps. Why don't we just go right from the top, just real quick. Step 1 was
Uncovering scarcity seeds.
step 2.
Is building financial foundations, and then tapping into the vision, cultivating your abundant identity, and strategic financial action.
Awesome. Okay. So you've got these personas that come with your quiz: volatile visionary, relentless reacher, and abundant alchemist. What does each one of those do if they've got a surprise $1,000 in their pocket?
Oh, that is such a great question. No one has ever asked me that before, but I'm so glad you did. Okay. So the volatile visionary, what that person does if they have an extra $1,000 is they spend it as fast as possible on something that would be really fun, that they really want. Even if they might feel a little guilty after, they might be like, ooh, I don't know if that was the right choice. They might feel a little stressed after, but they're going to take that money and it's going to flow out as fast as it came in. And it's going to go towards something like a thing you've been really wanting to buy, but putting it off, or a trip or something like that. Like, that's exactly where that money is going to go. The relentless reacher, if they found an extra $1,000 in their pocket, that would likely go towards something very strategic, like bills, or maybe it wouldn't get spent on anything big at all. It would just kind of slowly dwindle over time towards the everyday mundane things. Like maybe you'd go out to eat a little bit more and it would just kind of like slowly chip away at it, but it wouldn't have a huge impact on your life. You would still work just as much as you worked before. You would still be doing just as much as you were doing before. And it would kind of just like flow right into the everyday, and it would kind of like dwindle. Eventually you'd be like, where did that money go? It just kind of like slipped right through the cracks. The abundant alchemist, which is the balanced in the middle version, what they do is they take that money and they look at what would be the best use for it. They pause and make a conscious decision about where to spend that money. And it could be on something logical and strategic like bills. It could be on something fun, but it's based on the goals that they are currently working towards and where is going to move the needle the most for them. So they pause, they look at their money, they look at their financial blueprint, and they make a strategic decision about what would be best for spending that money so that they can move forward towards their goals, whatever that looks like for them.
That's great. Those are really nice and clear. And I could place myself and my two kids in all three of those. So it's really interesting. Okay. So I want to ask a question. The question didn't come from a dear friend of mine, but she said it to me the other day, and it just made me think, I'm going to ask this question to Scarlett when we're on this call. And it was like, she goes, I'm just bored. And I thought, you're bored? Like, she goes, yeah, I'm just sick and tired and I'm bored. And I said, oh, like of your business? And she goes, no, of hitting the same income ceiling over and over and over again. What's going to help her move out of that boredom, I guess?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because there are a couple phases and components to transitioning into your next level of abundance. And that's really this is the bread and butter of what I talk about with my clients is you're in this current comfort zone, you're in this current reality, and you have a desire to get to the next level, whether that is bringing more income in or just living a different lifestyle, whatever that looks like for you, there's a gap between this life you've currently been living and your specific next level of abundance. And in order to make this transition, a few things have to happen. One of those things is an internal component, and that is getting all parts of you on board. Because I believe in the philosophy that we are made up of several selves. There are multiple parts of us that live within us. And we talk about this all the time, even if we're not aware of it. We'll say, part of me really wants to go to the gym, but another part really just wants to sit here and watch TV and eat ice cream, right? So we know we have different conflicting parts, but we're not always very conscious and aware of them. So anytime we are in a situation, when you look around at this reality that you're living in right now, there is something within you or someone within you who is contributing to keeping you here. Having is evidence of wanting. The fact that you are here is because you are here for a reason and something within you is creating it. And so in order to step into your next level of abundance, you have to get a majority of yourselves on board. This is also where self-sabotage comes from. If you're trying to work towards a goal and you're trying to break out of your comfort zone, you're doing it, you're making progress, it's feeling really good. And then you hit a threshold and a bunch of selves get scared. They're like, oh no, we're not safe out here in the unknown. We got to go back to what we're used to because it's safe there. And that's when they come and they self-sabotage and they pull you back to what you are used to. And so in order to break out of that, you have to get every part of you on board and feeling safe to step into the next level expansion. What I think is really interesting about your friend is that a deeper layer of this is not only do we have to feel safe in the expansion, we also have to feel satisfied with the current situation because there is another part of us that not only is safe where we currently are, but actually really loves and enjoys where we currently are. It's I like it this way. Even if it's not a good thing, it subconsciously really enjoys it. For example, when I did this work on myself, I discovered when I did my own deep dive that there was a part of me that really loved being repressed, being put down, not being successful, because then it made me feel better than other people. It really pushed me to prove myself. It made me really self-righteous to be you don't even know, or this is so unfair. And I only got to experience all of that super fun self-righteousness, repressedness when I was pushed down, when I was knocked down, when I wasn't achieving the things that I wanted to achieve. And so in order to break out of this current situation and into the next one, we also need to have all of ourselves feel completely satisfied and content with this current chapter so we can close this chapter and move on to the next one. So if you are currently like stuck in the same situation, no matter how hard you try or what you do, it's an internal reason. There's a self that's keeping you here. And so likely parts of her are bored, maybe not all of them, because if she was truly bored, if all parts of her were bored, then she would immediately like slingshot right into the next level version.
I liked what you said there. You're here today in your current situation because you want it that way. And so you have to get all those parts of yourself to believe that actually, no, I don't. And how do you calm down those beliefs of if you really wanted it, you would do it? Or if you really didn't want this, you wouldn't be here kind of thoughts?
Yeah. And I think this is actually a really important conversation because I think this is what a lot of, surface level personal growth is missing. You hear all the time, like, just think positive, take those negative thoughts and throw them away and like kill the inner critic. But the truth is like, that doesn't really work. You can take these parts like the self-sabotage or the inner critic and you can repress them and quiet them and pretend like they don't exist, but they're still there. If anything, they're there and you're unaware of them and they are still impacting you. So they're going to show up in ways and you're going to be really confused about what happened. You're going to be like, how did I even self-sabotage myself? Because you're not aware of this self. And so that approach of just like quieting the thoughts and killing off the inner critic, it actually has the opposite effect. If anything, it keeps you where you are more because you're ignoring the things that are keeping you here. And so what I teach my clients how to do is I combine a couple different coaching modalities together. And one of them is we need to actually work with ourselves, not against them. And so anytime a self is keeping you here, it's keeping you here for a reason. And most of the time, 99% of the time, it's rooted in safety. There is something about the next level of abundance, you doing the things you want to do, that is really scary. That's really intimidating. There are some fears that are coming up, and those selves are here to protect you because no matter what your current life looks like, whether you like it or not, you are comfortable here and you are safe here because you are used to living this way, especially if you grew up with not a lot of money and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. That's your comfort zone. You're used to it. You might even feel way, way more comfortable not having a lot of money than having a lot of money. That's why people spend their money really quick when they get it, is because it's uncomfortable to have that much money. And so what we need to do is instead of repress these selves, we need to have a conversation with them and say, hey, like, what are you afraid of? What do you need? And we need to either shift the beliefs that are inaccurate that these selves are basing their information off of, right? Because they might have learned like it's not safe to have money because money is evil. So we don't need to kill the self. What we need to do is look at that belief and say, is this really accurate? We need to unwind that part of it so we can get to the truth of the matter, which is the truth that, oh no, money isn't actually evil. It's just my 5-year-old self learned this because my parents fought about money all the time. So we need to create some objectivity there and change the beliefs. And then the other piece is, what does that self need to feel safe? How can that self feel safe even when you do have a lot of money? What do they need from you to know that no matter what happens, everything's going to be okay and it's actually safe to be in this new reality? And so really it's a deep self-trust practice of how can you honor and protect all the parts of you so that they can feel safe stepping into the next iteration of your life.
So how I'm interpreting what you're saying is you're never really going to get rid of those thoughts, but you learn how to use those thoughts to sort of direct you and amplify where you're already at. Like can you really heal those thoughts? Maybe that's my question.
Yeah, I think you can, because the thoughts might be based on inaccurate information that we were just taught about ourselves, the world, and money growing up. So, yeah, the selves themselves are not bad, right? So, the part of you that's self sabotaging, the part of you that's procrastinating, they're not the problem, right? If anything, they're just trying to do you a favor, they're helping you out. So, we can thank them for that. They're just doing it based off of old inaccurate information, right? Where they're like, when I make this much money, then something bad's going to happen or it's going to get taken away, right? So, what we need to do is change the information, change the beliefs, change the thoughts that these selves are acting based on. And we can do that. There's a different technique I use called story work that really gets to the core of what created these beliefs about ourselves, the world, and money. Where were we taught these things about money and what is okay to spend on and what is not okay to spend on? And, money doesn't grow on trees. Like, where did we learn these things? And how can we get perspective on that? How can we release some of the emotional charge that it really has a hold on us? And so when you unwind the stories that implanted the beliefs, then the selves can start doing what they are meant to do, which is serve you in a way that actually helps you get to where you want to go instead of hold you back from going to where you want to go. And then when you get all yourselves on the same page, working on the same team with the aligned beliefs, then it's easy that you get there because there's nothing within you holding you back.
So the work is uncovering the selves, I guess.
Yes, uncovering the selves, uncovering the stories and the foundational beliefs that you have about yourself, the world, and money. And then learning to shift those things and work with those things to be in alignment with your most abundant life instead of in alignment with the life you're currently living.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I have more questions. So, manifest through money. So, is that actually something you can do? And if so, give us an example of directing dollars to sort of design a life now, not someday, but for a woman who might even have just sort of a limited supply.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe manifestation through money is not only possible, I think that's exactly what money is. Money is a tool for manifestation. Anytime you spend money, every single day, what you're doing is you are manifesting. When you spend money, you're making a choice about your life. You're making a decision. You are choosing something and you are creating a result. Even if it's something as simple as like buying a coffee, you are deciding to manifest a coffee into your life, and then you spend money to manifest that coffee into your life. It's literally a tool for creation. And so no matter how much money you have right now in this moment today, you are actively manifesting with your money, and you are actively manifesting this life that you are currently living. And so you can use your money more consciously and intentionally and strategically to create the life you want to live by starting to align your money with that life. And you can do this no matter how much money you have, even in small ways, when you remember that your money is a choice. So I have an example of this. So I know that in my vision of being like a multimillionaire and having lots of money, part of that is that I'm a philanthropist. I give money away to causes that I really care about. So donating and being generous is part of my vision of my most abundant life. And I can start to choose that and prioritize that and cultivate that now. And so, ever since I started my business 5 years ago, even when I wasn't making any money at all, in fact, I was in the negative and I was spending a lot of money, I always donated to causes that I cared about. Even if it was just a couple dollars a month, every single month when I looked at my money and I looked at my numbers, there was always donations on there because that was evidence that I was choosing my most abundant life. It was evidence that I am a philanthropist. I am my most abundant self, and I can tell because I'm donating, right? So you can choose with your money all the time. And it could be an example like that, or even it could be what are the things that you say no to in your most abundant life, and what are the things that you say yes to? What are your real priorities? What is most important to you? And how can you start to choose those things with your money starting right now? And it really comes down to the allocation and the percentages too. If in your best life you prioritize the healthiest foods and the most organic produce, how can you start to choose and prioritize those things now, even if it means starting to say no to other things, or even if it means just starting with a small amount? But with your money, you always are choosing the life that you're living. And it's just recognizing that your money is your power and your control to create your life.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to use the thinking, feeling, doing grid on a competent client. So before the shift, what is she thinking, feeling, doing? And after the shift, what is she thinking, feeling, doing? And I mean, after she's worked with you for your 8-week program,
6 months.
6-month program, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, okay. So before doing this work, before transforming your relationship with money, a typical client would come to me and would be thinking, I don't have enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, it's never enough. I feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can't even imagine ever living a life that really feels abundant, where I can really do the things I want to do. I feel like it should be possible. I just don't know how to get there. And money is really controlling my life. What happens as a result, the feelings that comes with is powerlessness. Feeling powerlessness, feeling like you don't have control over your life, like there's nothing you can do about it, and like you're a slave to your money, like your money is controlling you. And what happens as a result is money is kind of all over the place. It always feels like it's slipping through the cracks. What you're doing is you're staying stuck in a job that might feel misaligned, and your money is being spent unconsciously in a variety of ways, and you continue to feel like you never have enough. Versus on the flip side of going through empowered abundance, through going this work through transforming your relationship with money, what you think is I am in control. I am the one in control of my money. I am the one in control of my life. Also, I am enough and I have enough. And I know that to be true because I've done the internal work to prove it. And also, I can see my money clearly and know how much money I have and know how much money I need. The feelings that creates is empowered and abundant. And what they do, what that looks like is they are in control of their money. They manage their money. They look at their money. They spend time with their money, and they make decisions about their life from a calm, grounded place. Instead of an emotional and stressed place, they make decisions from an empowered place in alignment with their most abundant lives and with their most abundant self. Whether that means finding more creative ways to get more money if they do need more money, but feeling solid and confident in that, or whether that means spending the money that they do have really intentionally in alignment with their goals that they're working towards. And as a result, they start living the life that they want to live and making the choices that they really want to make.
That was really good. Thank you. So, okay, so I'm going to give you some listener scenarios, and I want you to kind of just give, just a little bit of a tidbit of what you're thinking. So let's say there's a listener and they're thinking, well, I make good money, but then I find ways that I give it all. So I give it all away. So what inner part is running the show at that point? And what is the one step, I guess, to feel a little bit safer to hold on to more?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think if I was working with someone, those would be some of the questions that I would ask. And it'd be like, okay, what part of you is making this choice? What part of you is putting their hands on the wheel and driving this car that's telling you need to give all of your money away? And why? What is the foundational belief that you're basing this off of? Is it a fear that having a lot of money is bad, that your money's going to get taken away from you or you're going to lose it anyway? So you might as well get rid of it first so that you're not caught off by surprise and you're not feeling hurt when your money is taken away? Is it that you were taught that you're not lovable and you need to buy friends, and that people only love you for your money, and that's why you need to give money away because you're not worthy and deserving on your own? So it could be many things. Those are just a couple examples, but the question is, what part of you is doing this? And also, like, what is the foundational belief? What is the foundational reasoning behind that? And once we uncover that, we can look at that objectively and say, is this accurate? Is this true? Where did you learn that you were going to lose your money? Where did you learn that people only like you for your money? Where did you learn this? And then we can discharge the energy and create space around that story.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So another one says, I freeze every time I raise my prices because service and money feel like a bit of a conflict. I want to give good value, but I also know I'm giving so much value that I should actually be charging more, but then I cringe when it comes to charging more. So how would you resolve that sort of tension with that client?
Yeah, and this is huge. This is actually something that I love diving into with my clients. I do have a whole process for pricing your offers. It's called the offer pricing secret sauce, and there are multiple factors to consider when it comes to pricing your offers. One is that pricing can be just a simple math equation based on time, energy, and money. Sometimes it can feel weird when you're offering something intangible like coaching, where you're like, I don't know how to put a price point on it. I don't know what it's worth, but there's actually a very simple math formula that can tell you what is the right price point for you based on how much money you need to be bringing in to cover all your bills and your expenses, based on the client capacity you can hold, and based on how much time and energy you have available for those clients. So that gives you the number. And then it's about getting comfortable with that number. What are your beliefs around your ability to deliver that value, right? And this is where there can be some stickiness and also thoughts around if people are going to pay for it. And so the other thing to consider is your clients, right? But not in the way you traditionally think. We might think that any amount of money or a high amount of money is bad, and that the best thing is to have it be as cheap as possible. And that's really in service to people. But I think this is totally inaccurate. The truth is that there is somebody out there willing to pay any amount of money for anything. And I have heard this to be true. There are some people paying, like $30 a session per coaching. There are people paying multiple $1,000, $10,000 plus for coaching. So there is somebody out there willing to pay. The question is who? And is that person the type of person that you want to be working with? Your price point is just a filter system, but you want it to be the filter system for your best clients. Is the person who's only willing to pay $30 to work with you really your best client? Is the person who is going to pay $10,000 a session your best client, right? And you get to determine that right answer for you, because I believe that your price point is not a bad thing. I think that your price is actually contributing to the value that you offer. It actually contributes to your service because your price point gives somebody the opportunity to commit to themselves in a bigger way than ever before. It holds them accountable. It gives them the opportunity to show up. It gives them the opportunity to manifest with their money what is important to them, what they are choosing, what they believe in. And everybody's amount for that is different, but you want to be attracting the people who are ready to do the work, who are committed to working with you, and who want to get those results. And if you're charging a low price point, you're actually taking away that person's opportunity to commit to themselves. You're actually doing a disservice, and you're diminishing the amount of value that they're capable of receiving from working with you.
Yeah. And I think it's also too just challenging yourself to put that higher ticket price point out there and just see it, just challenge yourself. You've got your package offers, you've got this offer, throw in a huge offer and just, add a whole bunch of other really great value, stuff that you're probably already doing in your sessions anyway, but list it and then put it out there and let's just see who grabs it. Because like you said, I think coaching especially, but most offers, they're all over the map. It's so hard to determine, and the best way to determine it is like, what do you think you're worth, and that's what I guess you do is you help us feel more worthy, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. So you can feel confident in whatever price point you choose, and also continue to expand your price point and push yourself in a way that also serves your clients.
Yeah. Scarlett, if the listener only remembers one thing from today, what is it? And what is the micro action that proves it true?
Okay, that's such a great question. So The thing that I want you to take away is the belief that you are in control, that you have so much more power and control over your life and over your money than you believe. And that even no matter how much money you have or where you're starting from, you can cultivate and step into a deeper level of abundance. And that is totally and completely possible for you. And one action that you can take is to start to take control of your money. Instead of seeing your money as something that's happening to you, it's starting to be conscious and intentional with your money. So when you spend money, when you go to spend money, pause and ask yourself, why am I choosing this? What choice am I making here and why? And what choice could I make with my money that's even more in alignment with my most abundant life? And how can I feel solid and safe and strategic and intentional with that choice, no matter how much money it is? It could be $1, it could be 100, could be 1,000, could be 10,000, could be any amount of money. But what can you choose? What can you decide powerfully with your money today?
Yeah, no, that's really good. Scarlett, you've been amazing. Thank you. I usually don't record this long, but I think you just added so much value. I think you're just on such a wonderful trajectory. I can't wait to see you 10 years from now. Where do people find you? More particularly, the quiz. Why don't we just send them to wherever the quiz is?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I highly invite you to take the quiz. It's super fun. Once you find out your information, you get an awesome email with how to work specifically with your money mindset type. So there's lots of value to be had in the quiz. You can take the quiz on my website, thebizhippie.com/quiz.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Scarlett, for showing up today. You're great. And I look forward to kind of watching your progression.
Thank you so much for having me today. It was such a pleasure to be on your show.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.